It's really hard when you have like an entire month of books that you didn't like. Like it almost feels personal at that point. Hi, hello, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Alex, and today is my September wrap-up, so we're going to talk about the books I read in September. So, as some of you know, I am a freelancer, and September was like kind of busy for me. I kind of just kept getting work, which was super exciting for me, but it also meant that I didn't get as much leisurely reading done as I would like. That being said, the 3 books that I did read, I didn't even really like them that much. And that made it even harder because, like, reading one book that you don't like, fine, it's okay. Like, we'll just move on to the next one. And then the next one and the one after that you don't like as well. It's like, that's the kind of stuff that puts you in a reading slump, you know what I mean? And I have had trouble, like, picking up momentum for October. I don't know if you guys watched the Maybe series last week, but I said, like, I had to keep a high momentum for October to get through all the books I wanted to get through, and I have not. So yeah, I'm really struggling. It's gonna be okay. So let's talk about what I did read in September. But before we get into it, make sure you hit all the buttons down below so you know when I'm posting. I post every week. And in October, after this episode, is going to be all about my favorite horror books and things like that. So I don't want you to miss any of that. So make sure you hit all the buttons so you know when I'm posting. Okay, let's start. The first book I read in September is A Girl Like That by Tanaz. Bhathena? I don't know. I still don't know. I love this cover, you guys. This is why it made it to the top of my list. That and, like, I love diversifying my bookshelf. I love reading about people from other countries and other cultural perspectives. So this was, like, super, super promising. And I still love the book. Like, the cover, the way that they put the book together, there's, like, some embossing. And the hardcover copy is like this really soft pink color, and then the lettering is like shiny teal. Oh my gosh. Like, I'm in love with the idea of this book, okay? So let's talk about it a little bit. We have a female main character named Zarin, and she kind of is portrayed as this girl that lives on the wild side a little bit. And living in Saudi Arabia, girls are not really supposed to be like that. Not supposed to be outgoing, outspoken. They're not supposed to, like, smoke or ride in cars with boys. And Zarin does all of these things. And so she kind of gets painted as, you know, bad news. She gets herself a little reputation, you know, with the men and the women. The story opens up on Zarin and a boy, Porus, dead in a car on the highway. And, like, this whole controversy kind of explodes. Why are they in the car together? What really happened? And all this stuff. So the book had a lot of promise. I didn't hate it, okay? Because once we got into the book, I really fell in love with the characters. I really liked Zarin as a character. There was a couple other female characters in there that were really interesting to read about. And Porus, I fell in love with Porus too. He was just the sweetest guy. The reason I didn't love this book was because there was about 100 pages. The first 100 pages was just info dump. There's just no other way to put it. Like, it was just tons of information that I was not sure that I absolutely needed to get through the book. And I'm here to tell you now, I did not absolutely need all that information. We spent a lot of time talking about religion and politics and how people immigrate to Saudi Arabia. All of that information is useful, but I didn't need it to be so dense. Like, I didn't need so much of it, because as we were going through the book, I wasn't sure how the information that was given to us was applied to the characters in question. Saudi is kind of a religiously diverse country, which I did not really know. They talked about it in a way that you were judged on your religion in the first 100 pages, but then in the rest of the book, we never saw that happen. Like, we didn't really see any, like, religious discrimination. We didn't really see anything like that, except that people just kind of wanted to stay in their groups, but nobody really, like, picked on each other about their religion. It was just kind of accepted that everyone did something different. And along those lines fell into, like, marriage and growing up and spending time with people that were in your religious group was just a little bit more acceptable. But it wasn't like, no one ever spoke negatively about it, like, oh, you can't go see them because they're this religion. It was never really gotten into, so I was really confused by why we spent so much time speaking on it when it didn't really seem to apply in the context of the book. It was just kind of like the author was telling us just so that we would have that information forever in no context of the writing. So it was a little dense and it was hard to get through. And it's like the first 100 pages, it was a lot. And it was like, I just kept thinking, when are we going to get to the story? When are we going to get back to Zarin and Porus dead in the car? When are we getting back to that? It took a really long time. It took a really long time. Now, once we got into the story, I really liked it. I really liked the characters. I like what she did. And the portrayal of women in Saudi Arabia, especially young girls, was very heartbreaking and heartfelt and terrifyingly sad story, honestly. Like, when you look at it like that, it was just kind of a heartbreaking moment for girls in Saudi. I felt a lot. So, I mean, I didn't dislike the book. It was just, if you're one of those people that can DNF a book, I would not have finished it because it was just so much. And I didn't understand why we needed to know all of it in the context of the characters in the book that we were reading. So, I ended up giving it 4 stars because once I got into the book, I really liked it. I really loved Zarin and Porus and everything. But those first 100 pages, whew. If you really want to read it, just buckle in, okay? The next book on my list is The Housemaid by Freida McFadden. This book was chosen for my book club, and it has extremely good reviews. Like, everyone's been, like, talking about this book, so it's like, yeah, let's read it. It sounds great. We have a main character, Millie, who has a troubled background, and she is having a hard time finding and keeping a job. Well, she stumbles upon Nina, who needs a live-in housekeeper. She goes, she gets the interview, everything seems fine, and then when she shows up to work, like, Nina is like night and day from the person that she interviewed with. The house is like trash, Nina treats her badly, the little daughter is awful. Her room is not in like the proper part of the house, it's like in the attic with a door that has a lock on the outside. It's a little bit of a red flag. Millie is so desperate to have somewhere to live and to work that she ignores a lot of these little red flags until it's just too late to ignore them anymore, and things start to happen. Once I dug into the reviews, it was very clear that people either really loved this book or they really hated this book. I can definitely say I did not like this book. These characters were not likable or relatable. I didn't like them at all. Like, by the time we got halfway through the book, I was so over Millie. I was so over Nina. I was so over the husband. Now I can't remember his name. That's how much I did not like him. I cannot even remember his name. Description of the book promised like a mind-blowing plot twist. Let me tell you, that plot twist came and I was like, seriously. Because it was extremely reminiscent of a very popular psychological thriller. Was like, they took that idea and was like, no one will know. How would they know? They're gonna know. I knew. She didn't even do a good job writing it. Like, she didn't even do a good job with the plot twist. I was like, it happened and I was like, oh, okay. Because at that point, there was no redeeming qualities in the 3 main characters that we were looking at. I did not care. By the time that plot twist came, and people were like, oh, I did not care. I did not care enough about those characters to enjoy the plot twist. I was just like, let's just get it over with. Let's just move on. And I have to say, I did not like her writing style that much. It was very Dear Diary. Yeah, I had a lot of issues with this book. And I was super excited about it. I mean, it's a psychological thriller, and the cover and the reviews were like so good. I was really expecting to be wowed by, all of it, and I was very underwhelmed. There is a sequel to this book. I do not think I will be reading it because I just didn't enjoy the writing style, and I really don't think there's gonna be like a redeeming second book for me. Like, it was so funny to me how the pendulum swung. It was very like you either really liked it or you really didn't. So just mark me as one of the people that really didn't care for it, but I know that there's tons of people that have read this book and enjoyed it. I mean, half of the people in my book club that read it loved it. And then the other half of us didn't like it so much. So, yeah. The last book I read in September is It Ends With Her by Brianna Labuskes. I think that's how you say it. This book was also supposed to be super duper promising, okay? It stars a female FBI special agent, Clark Sinclair, as she hunts a serial killer. Simon Cross, I think is his name. Cross is definitely the last name. Like serial killer thriller, hello, it's like one of my favorite genres. So I was really excited to read this book, and when we open with, you know, Clark is deep in finding serial killer Cross. He picks up a new girl, and suddenly his whole MO changes and the timeline changes, and there's suddenly like a lot of pressure to find out why he's changed his MO, why he's changed the timeline. And it all kind of boils down to this is a very personal conflict directed at Clark. So, on the surface, this book is really good, okay? If you don't look too carefully at it, this book is really good. My issues. I didn't like Clark. At first, I loved Clark because she came across as a very, like, damaged, individual with a lot of PTSD, but she was really good at her job. Like, she had a lot of, at the beginning I felt like she had a lot of promise that she was someone who was taking her trauma in stride and trying to heal and just busting bad guys right and left. Well, yeah, further we get into the book, that is not the case with Clark. That girl ain't trying to heal from nothing, okay? She has just swallowed her trauma and is holding it in her throat, waiting to regurgitate it on everybody. The amount of things that she gets away with in this book because of her trauma is just unbelievable. Everyone in the book that's supposed to be like her support system or whatever, they just enable her bad behavior. They don't try to get her any help. They don't enforce any ultimatums that they give her. They'll be like, I'm gonna walk out of your life if you don't stop doing this, and she'll be like, fine, walk out, and they will, and then they'll come right back. So it's like, you didn't accomplish at all what you wanted to accomplish. There was just not one drop of healthy love in this book. Literally nowhere. We have all these relationships just happening through this whole book. There is not one drop of healthy love in this book. If I had to read more of, well, this is how we show each other love. No. Grow up and get freaking therapy and deal with your problems and stop treating people terribly and saying that's how you can love some. No. I got so frustrated because it's like, y'all, really, no one really wanted to heal from any of this. No one wanted to move past any of the trauma. And at the end of the day, Clark did not care who she hurt as long as she caught the serial killer. She did not care who she cut down in her path as long as she got her man. That was it. And that's horrible. I'm sorry, that's horrible. Like, and by the end of the book, I was like, you deserve to be alone. By the end of the book, I couldn't stand Clark anymore because she literally ruined so many people's lives because she would not get help for herself. She would not try to help herself. And it's like, and conflict of interest? Who's she? We don't know her. For real, like, this whole book, I'm sitting here is like, isn't it a conflict of interest that she's on this case? Isn't it a conflict of interest that they are partners? I swear, every couple pages I'm like, that's a conflict of interest, isn't it? That doesn't seem right, does it? This doesn't seem ethically correct. So I wanted to give this 4 stars because I was like, you know what? Okay, so I don't like Clark. I can get over the fact that I don't like a character. So I was like, well, the serial killer plotline was actually pretty good. Except when I started to go back and look on it, I'm like, was it though? When I go back and look at it now, I'm like, you know, they did not set up the clues so that we could follow. It was all very like, oh, well, from a previous case, you're not going to tell us? You're not going to help us, like, kind of get in the mindset of, like, helping you. That's kind of like the fun of, like, serial killer thrillers, like, kind of thing, isn't it? Like, feeling like you help solve the mystery. Is that just me that does that? I kind of get, like, a lot of pleasure out of, like, ooh, I figured it out. They did not set it up in a way that was even figure-outable. That's not a word. She didn't set it up in a way that was going to allow the reader to engage with the book. And I was like, okay, but the serial killer, right? Well written, ish. He was well-ish written. I don't understand how he was the most wanted person, like, ever, and he, like, slipped by everybody for, like, a decade. I'm not talking about, like, he killed, like, a few people. Like, a lot of people, they've been hunting him for a long time. So it was like, how has no one found him in this day and age, with all of this technology, with all of this? How? When I started to unravel it, it just unraveled in my hands. Like, I don't know. At its surface, if you do not dig deep into this novel, you will probably like it. Because at the beginning, I really did like Clark, because I do like reading about traumatized and damaged characters. I think it's a very, you know, underrepresented thing. But as we got further into the book, I'm like, you're telling me you've been this way for like 15 plus years and you're really just not gonna try and, like, heal for the betterment of yourself, at least, or for the betterment of the people who you sit here and say that you love? I ended up giving it 3 stars. I just could not rectify giving it a higher rating, but I know that there's other people that really like this book. Actually, some people on my TikTok were like, tell me what you think when it's done, and I'm like, I don't really want to talk about it because I didn't love it. So yeah, that's what I read in September. It wasn't my best lineup, you know, and it takes me such a long time to, like, come down to, like, my final lineup that it's always so disappointing when I get a couple books that I don't like. So I'm gonna try and just, like, brush September off and, like, move forward. My horror reads for October, I already finalized my lineup. I'm really excited. Now I just have to, like, start reading instead of procrastinating, because I really can't afford to procrastinate this month. If you've made it this far, please hit all the buttons down below so you know when I'm posting. I post every week, and there's horror content coming up, and I've got a very special announcement coming up in, I think it's next week's episode. Yeah, very exciting. So that's all I have for you guys today. I'll see you next time. Bye!